Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I am Lauren, your host, and I have a 1-year-old son. I started this podcast for any mother who might feel alone in their journey through motherhood. Becoming a mom is hard no matter how you get there, and this podcast is about the mom stuff that comes up in our lives. Listen, enjoy, and connect with us on the Mommy Escape Time podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I am Lauren, your host, and today it is just me. But this is hopefully one of the last times that it's just me for a little while. And today our topic is how I failed the sugar fast that I've been talking up for the past, 4 or 5 months to all of you. And you know what? It's totally okay that I failed. And I'm going to kind of walk you through my journey from start to finish about how I failed, why I think I failed, and what I'm going to try and do going forward. Although I don't really have all that part worked out. I don't have the going forward part. So if you don't know, starting on January 6th, I did a sugar fast. And it was through this woman, Wendy Speak. She does it. This is like her 6th, maybe this is her 8th year of doing this sugar fast. And I connected with her last year, a little bit before the sugar fast last year, so in December. And I've really learned a lot from her. And basically what happened is when I had my son, who is now 19 months old, I wanted to incorporate church back into his life. And I am struggling to find a church for our family. And it's not for lack of there aren't enough churches around or there isn't something. I'm just looking for something different. And in my area, there's just the very typical churches. There aren't, I don't even know how to describe them. Progressive churches is maybe what I'm trying to say. So I think that part is a struggle for me. And so through this online community that Wendy has, it's a little more progressive but I respect and I love Wendy and everything. But it's like too much. And I know that, and I know what my limits are. I'm not going to go from, I don't want to say no religion, but from almost no religion to the extremes of every second of my day is about my religion. So that is my struggle. We sort of have a church that we go to, and it's great, and everyone there is really nice. I think the part that I'm struggling with is that there aren't people really with young families that go to church, and it's great that the people are there and they're much older than me and their kids aren't living in the house anymore. But I'm kind of looking for a church where other families go. And sometimes the church that we go to, there are some families, but their kids are much older, already in elementary school and things like that. And unfortunately, I only go to churches where I can have childcare. Otherwise, it's not worth it for me to go because then I'm just trying to wrangle my child for an hour of church. So finding a church, not working out for me so much. So we go when we can, and I try to just set aside time to read in my Bible and reflect. And I'm still looking for a Bible study online, and I just haven't found one. Maybe because I'm not trying hard enough. But basically what happened was over our Christmas break this year, I emailed I would say 30 churches in the area. And I was like, look, this is what I am looking for in a church. Is this what your church offers? And I'm a huge believer that a church needs to not exclude people because that's just not my belief. And I am finding that there are very few churches that include all people, and that has been the biggest struggle for me. So that also limits my church options. And I'm also going to be very frank that the times that churches are typically in this area are just so not they're just so like right in the middle of the day. Like if I had an 8 a.m. mass that I could go to with my son, we would be fine. I probably would be like, all right, this church, I'll, let this go, and this go. But, not my beliefs, but like parts of the masses that I'm not really into. However, around here, most church services happen between like 9:30 and 10. And that's like in the middle of like, it's just not a good time for my son because either way, I have to like have a lunch already prepared for us when we get home, or like I have to bring him a snack and he can't eat snack because of all the allergies. So now you can't bring a snack to church. So it's just so much work for me to go to church at this point. I do think that when my son is maybe like a little older, maybe like 3 or 4, and he has more language and is able to do things more, that it maybe won't be as much of a challenge. But right now, it is a challenge. So that's church issues there. So I don't have that connection with church. So my only connection with that church community consistently has been through Wendy and all the stuff that she does. So I really do the sugar fast and I really take it seriously because I feel like this is my only connection to like a group of people that want God in their lives and in their families' lives. And even though I completely failed the sugar fast, which actually technically ends tomorrow, but I so didn't even make it. But on parts of it, I did. Sort of. We'll get to that. What did end up happening is that I think from following what Wendy wanted us to follow, I'm finding that I am doing too much. And I'm not giving myself this break that I desperately need. So when we start the sugar fast, we talk about how you have to set aside rules. And one of the main rule that everyone is going to follow is that you are fasting from sugary things for 40 days, meaning no sweets, no treats, no sugary drinks. I don't drink coffee, but like sweeteners and stuff like that. Past that, it's kind of up to you. And this year, Wendy had a book that went along. So each day you read a chapter or you listened to a chapter, however you did it. And so this is what would happen. This was my typical day starting every day. I would get up at 4:45 in the morning every day. I would go and I would work out. And then after I would work out, there were like, I don't even know, passages of the Bible, just like short ones, like one line, a verse that you would read. And I would read that in the morning after my workout. And I would shower and I'd either get ready for work, or if it was on the weekends, I would get ready for my son to get up. And by that time, he would be up. And then I would have my day. And on work days, I got up, I left, I went to work, and I had no breaks at work. And I would leave work. I would get my child. I would be with him. My husband would watch him so I could make dinner. I'd make dinner. And as I'm making dinner, I was also packing my son's food or packing my food for the following day or days. Because I don't have enough container. The way I have to do it for his food, I'd have to spend like $1 million to have containers so I could only pack it once a week. So I have to pack it like every 2 days. So as I'm cooking dinner, I'm also doing that. Then we would eat dinner. Then after dinner, I would clean up and I would play with my son. And then my husband would do his bath. And while my husband was doing his bath, I was getting my clothes ready for the next day. And then I was helping to put my son to sleep. Then after my son went to sleep, I would take my chapter from the Sugar Fast book. I would read that. I would journal about my day. Then I would read my Bible chapter for the day, and I would journal about that. And then it was 8:45. Then I would shower, and then it was like 9 o'clock. So my first free second of the day was at 9 p.m. And that was after waking up at 4:45 a.m. And please don't tell me like, oh, your husband should have been doing this, your husband should have been doing that. I stopped making dinner like 3 nights a week, and we would have frozen pizzas or a those Annie Organics macaroni and cheese. Like the things that I was making from dinner was getting worse and worse because the time that I physically had to do things at this point was getting less and less. And all I kept feeling was this pressure like, how am I going to get all this stuff done? Because now, after my son goes to sleep, I don't have a minute because I have to read my chapter, journal about my day, and read my Bible passage. And then I have to go to bed, and because I have to get up the next day and do all this other stuff. And so what started to happen is that in the morning, instead of working out some of the days, I would be getting up and doing some of my readings and stuff like that. And then it was just getting to be so much. And part of what the Sugar Fast is about is listening and listening to what God is saying to you. And every day, I would say the first 2 weeks, I was going really, really strong. The first so it's kind of hard. I started the Sugar Fast earlier. I started it on January 1st, and it started January 6th. So January 1st, I started, but I didn't start reading the book or journaling until the fast actually started on January 6th. So I was really, at the beginning, it was kind of easy because I hadn't fallen behind on stuff. Like, there's a lot that I do when my son goes to bed that is like my time, and like I physically don't get time to myself really. It's my husband and I are the only people around. We don't have family around. There's no one to really help us out with our son. So one of us always has him. And if my husband has his own company, so he doesn't always have a choice about when he's working, because he's always on call. So it gets a little complicated because obviously then I have to watch my son. And I would never regret watching my son or having a moment with my son. Any moment I can have with my son is a blessing, and I am grateful for it every day. I never take that for granted, ever. So I don't see it as, oh, I have my son, so I can't do this, this, and this. I just see it as, I got to spend time with my son today, so I didn't get to this, this, and this. I'll have to do it tomorrow or the next day, or I catch up on the weekends. Sometimes my mother-in-law comes. She comes like a few weekends throughout the year, like every couple of months she comes so that I can get stuff done. And then my mom actually comes like opposite times so that, normally like every 2 months, at least there's one weekend where one of them is here so that I can like kind of catch up on stuff and get stuff done. Unfortunately, January always seems to be like the hardest month for me. Last year it was the hardest month because it was the first month that we did not have one of the mothers physically living with us, helping us out with our son. And this year, I have never felt such a depletion of Christmas spirit after going back to work in January, and it had nothing to do with work. It just seemed to be like overall, like everyone that I came into contact with, it was just like, all right, Christmas is over, we're moving on, and now everything is horrible until spring. And it kind of like fed on me a little bit, where I was like, Christmas, it's not even I don't care about the gifts. I don't care about that. It's just, I love getting together with people. I love hosting things. I love having, it's like that time of year where there's always something to do and there's something fun. And I wish it was like that all the time. And then you get to January and it's like everything just stops. And here in New England, it's like, well, it's dark out for another 3 months. So no one has fun lights out. No one has their Christmas trees in their windows anymore. It just kind of stops. And it was this year, I feel like it was just a little more jarring than it has been in years past. And I don't know if there, I can't even explain what it was. So I was really, there was so much that I learned in the sugar fast. I mean, I really tried to focus. I was really trying to work on it. I think where my issue was is that I started eliminating left and right. So every chapter that we read in the Sugar Fast book talks about, can you add more things that you can eliminate? So other things that I eliminated is I am not going to Target. And that is not something that I've broken in the sugar fast yet. I have not walked into a Target. I've not walked into a Target since before Christmas. Um, and I don't think and I have not ordered anything. I haven't looked online for anything. I'm just, not shopping. Amazon, the same thing. I'm not shopping for anything except diapers, wipes. I think that's the only thing, two things that I have bought. And something for like the diaper trash can, the like plastic bags that go in it. And those are the only things that I have bought on Amazon. And it's just been, I buy it, I click it, and I'm out. Like there's no looking at other things. So other things that I also limited was podcasts. I actually eliminated listening to podcasts, which kind of was a confusing thing to me. So the next two things are like things that I kind of got confused on and things that kind of made me start thinking like, is this really what I am looking for out of this sugar fast? And it was kind of like eliminating all the things that I liked, like my interests and things like that. I obviously like podcasts, but I also like listening to podcasts, and there's a lot that I can learn from listening to other people's podcasts, and there's a lot that I want to try after listening to other people's podcasts. So it's almost like a study for my own podcasting. And so I stopped listening to that, and I've been limiting my phone to 30 minutes a day, and I was trying not to do it at all around my son, which like ended up becoming impossible. So I would say around like day like 18 or 19 in my journal, I was just reading back at my journal. I was getting very frustrated because I felt like everything I did, I was doing the wrong thing, because instead of wanting to somehow read my Bible while I was frustrated with something with my son or like anything like that, when I would normally run to sugar, if I was bored or anything like that, I felt guilty doing anything. And then I started feeling guilty like in the morning when I do my hair. I watch like, well, I said I typically watch like a show like I talked about 2 weeks ago about the comfort shows that I watch, and I maybe watch for 15 minutes a day. And I was starting to feel guilty, like, oh, instead I should get some Bible app that's reading the Bible out loud to me while I'm getting this ready. And I started to get really frustrated. Like, is this what the sugar fast is about? That I'm literally supposed to take every second of my life and not have anything but God in my life? And then no one else, on top of all that, part of what we have to do is go online every day and read, like, there's someone who will post about the day, and you're supposed to interact with that person on the day. And then, so the next part that made me frustrated was that we were supposed to be limiting the time on our phones, and we were supposed to get off social media. And we were being told, though, to go on social media and look at this. And I understand that obviously there is that balance. And I think what it was saying is don't go on and just randomly scroll through and do that for hours. Instead, go on, do the 40-day sugar fast stuff, and then get off. But it started compounding. Like, nothing was going to be good enough. Like, nothing I could do was going to be good enough for the 40-day sugar fast. It wasn't good enough that I was just giving up sugar. It wasn't good enough that I was not going shopping anywhere. It wasn't good enough that I was not listening to podcasts. It wasn't good enough that, I went onto my phone even to go on social media. And I literally had zero time for myself. And not that every day you are going to get time to yourself. But then I really started studying the people in the 40-day sugar fast who are running it. And all their kids are older. And all their kids are at least in school of some sort, whether they're being homeschooled or not. But they're all at least, I would say, at least 5 years old or older. And I started to think, okay, well, I'm in a different situation in my life. And I really am not enjoying or learning anything except that I am starting to hate this, and I am starting to hate learning more and more about God. And I was started to think, okay, so I'm not supposed to be hating this. Like, I might hate, I don't want to say hate, but I might be frustrated that I don't get to eat sugar, but I didn't want to hate my connection with God. And that is what I was starting to hate, because I started to feel like I was never going to be good enough. And no matter what I did, I was failing in some way because I couldn't follow the book. What I was connecting, I started starting less connecting with Wendy's book, but I was connecting sometimes more with my Bible readings for the day. So I started to read less of Wendy's book, like really skim it, like no more than 4 minutes, 3 minutes, skimming the 5 pages, and really focused on my Bible verses. And those times it kept saying, listen to God, stop talking, and listen to God. So I would sit there and I would pray to God. And I said, what am I supposed to be doing right now? I said, I feel like I'm back at the beginning. I feel like I still have no church. I don't have a connection. I feel like, I found Wendy and she's supposed to be my connection to something. And now I'm feeling like now I'm second guessing my thoughts with Wendy. And I listened and I listened and I listened. And then I ended up I ended up doing a favor for someone at work, and I am adding more hours to my teaching life. And that sort of ended up being my breaking point, where I was like, okay, I can't do these readings every night. This is like an hour out of my night, and I'm not seeing my husband. I am not enjoying the readings. I'm just doing them out of obligation, not out of any connection that I am making. And it was making it worse. So after 27 days, I decided I was done. And I was just done. And I remember my husband had a meeting that day, and we thought it was going to be a good meeting. And so I was like, you know what? I am going to go out. I am going to get something. I was just so hungry. I was like, I'm going to go out and get a bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel. And I'm like, I will come back and I will call my husband and see how his meeting went. And I went out and got that and I ate it. And I felt so much better. Like, so much better. Better than I had in days. And I called my husband, and of course he tells me that his meeting it couldn't have gone any worse. It could not have gone any worse. And so then I started to feel guilty. Like, okay. So I broke my sugar fast by, having that bagel and eating something unhealthy. And so this is why my husband's meeting didn't go well. And so I was like, So then I started having these irrational thoughts that, me eating sugar is the reason that something bad could happen. And so I started to really get frustrated about the whole situation. And I was like, this is not how I want to live. This is not how I have expected to live. And I can't feel guilty about every single thing that I do. So that's kind of when I just stopped. I stopped my readings. I stopped everything. And to be honest, I stopped really going on social media altogether because it was just like too much. And even now, um, I have my good days and my bad days, but I don't go past my 30 minutes a day. And I honestly think that it is not the sugar that is getting to me. I think it's the social media part of life that is getting to me, which gets to most people, I think. So that is the longest story of how I started a sugar fast, I finished, and where do I go from here? I don't really know where I'm going to go from here. My husband and I have talked about it a lot that I just don't know. I don't know where I'm going from here. I'm not giving up on God. That's for one thing. I am going to try to be better about reading my Bible and journaling about it. I think that helped. I think I think from someone that is not familiar with the Bible, and through this I read some stuff in the Bible, like certain stories and things like that, and like I knew they happened, and so for an example, I I can't remember where it was. I want to say Jericho, but maybe it wasn't. Anyways, this group of people had to run around these city walls for days, and finally on the seventh day, like God was supposed to help the walls collapse, and they do. And then this group of people comes into this city and takes it over, and then they burn it to the ground with all the people in it. And it's in the Old Testament. And I wish I could remember the whole story. And I'm sorry, this is such a bad example. But it was something like that where I was like, so God was telling you to kill every single person in this village so that you could move on to get to Israel. So things like that I started to question. So it's very hard. I don't know. I definitely don't have the answers. Um, and then the other thing is that during the 40-day sugar fast, which happened, I I guess this week, is that we have our a blood drive 3 times a year at the school, and I always give blood because I'm O positive, so they always need my blood. If you're O negative, you should be giving blood every 2 months because that is the blood that they need. So please donate blood. Anyone should be donating blood that can possibly donate blood. They always need blood. You save 3 lives. They Every time I've used my blood, the Red Cross will tell you about it, like where it goes. My blood has never sat around for more than 2 to 3 weeks. It's always used within that 2 to 3 weeks. I also have I'm O positive, and I have a special thing in my blood so I can that's needed for preemie babies. So you better believe that I will donate as much and as often as I can because of that, because they always need my blood. So donate blood. But anyways, so I knew I was going to be donating blood, and I just know for my recovery from donating blood that I would need to have some sugar. So this year, that was two 2 or 3 days after I'd stopped my sugar fast. And I knew that my blood pressure had started to get low because every time I stood up, I would, like, I don't want to say black out a little bit, but I couldn't get my eyes to see right away when I stood up. So I knew that my blood pressure had been low. Now, when I went to go donate blood, I was right on the borderline, and it was my decision, and I just said I would donate. I'm like, if I get dizzy or whatnot, I'll be fine. Well, long story short is I got more than dizzy. I didn't pass out, but I had to lay flat for about, I would say an hour. I drank, and I was prepared. This is not my first time giving blood. I drank so much water. I had eaten healthy the 2 or 3 days before, even if I had a little sugar. After I ate food. I had some juice like I was supposed to. I waited the time I was supposed to, and everything like that, and it didn't work out. So it is what it is. I can only chalk it up to my low blood pressure. And, sometimes that's just what happens with your body. And sometimes because I do a ridiculous amount, it's just what happens. So, no matter what, I knew that day I was going to have sugar. And that day I probably had the most sugar I've ever had in my entire life. I must have had at least 8 boxes of apple juice or cranberry juice. And I mean, every 20 minutes they were making me eat something out of the Red Cross like bins. So it was like Cheez Its or fruit snacks or Oreos. I was so full by the time the end of the school day came around. I was so full. I didn't even know what to do. So, uh, and I had to keep eating and drinking the whole next day. And then the next day I felt fine. So, I mean, and I'm fine now. So it's not really an issue that way. But I just, that is how my sugar fast ended. Where I'm going to go from here. I am trying to, I haven't had any sugary drinks except for that day for the, um, when I gave blood. Not an option. And there's been, I guess this week I've had to have Gatorade a little bit, just to kind of keep to help with my blood pressure. And it's gotten better. And with, just to make sure I'm not dehydrated from the loss of the blood. But I've been fine other than that. So, um, I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out. I guess that's where I'm at. I don't have an answer, and I don't have an answer. I think last year it might have been easier for me because I could not work out. So I was maybe not moving around as much, so the sugar didn't bother me. And I was only focusing on not doing the sugar. And my son still took an afternoon nap at that point. So I had a full hour that I could do something when I came home from school with my son. And now I don't have that time. There is no free time when I come home from work. So going forward, I guess I'm just going to try and eat less sugar overall. I'm really trying to limit. I think drinking sugar is my biggest issue. I really sometimes get out of control with soda and juice and stuff like that. And sometimes my husband and I think we're just, we're so tired sometimes that it's just like we just want that sugary treat is just what we want. So we're really trying to limit and not have anything in the house. And we're really trying to say, like, unless we work out that day, we cannot have any sugary treats. So I guess that's what we're going from there. Church wise, I don't know. I feel like I have just been on this roller coaster for about 2 years trying to figure it out. And all I figured out is that nothing is exactly what I want. And I think that until my son can be a part of a service, that it's just not in the cards for me right now. As for Wendy, I am still following Wendy. I still believe in a lot of the stuff she does. She does do a 40-day social media fast after the sugar fast, and that I think I might take part in. The only thing that I would have to do is go on to post my podcasts, as I there's no way I could have them all ready and set an alarm to have that go off. So I'm still working on figuring out what that would be. But I actually think a social media fast would probably be the best thing for me at this point, because I think that's my biggest issue. I've actually decreased the amount of people that I follow a great deal on my personal account. And um, I will say there's probably about 10 people on my Mommy Escape Time that I truly, truly follow. Round the Way Mom. Oh my gosh, my favorite person. She's coming out with a show. You better believe that I will share that because she, she is, she is my human. I don't even know how to describe it. She and I talk every like quick little bits every so often, and I get her, and she is like that mom who has kids that are older. She has a son that's, I want to say, like 7 or 8, and she's like that mom who like teaches you all that stuff, as the younger mom. So I love her. Um, so she keeps me going. She finds podcasts for me so I can so I feel connected to God. So she's great with that. So Round the Way Mom, follow her. She's the best. I talk about her all the time. So I will keep you guys updated on, what I do going forward. I don't have any answers, and I didn't make it, guys. I made it 27 days, and that's it. And you know what? That's still great. I've told like a bunch of my close friends, and they were like, I probably couldn't go a week without doing it. So, I have to say, like, I did what I could. I think I'm at a part, I think I'm just in that survival mode. Like, I don't know when I'll get out of survival mode, but eventually, obviously. But I think just being in that survival mode, like, I have to start doing less. I need time to do other things. So that's where I'm at. So, anyways, I do end the show with something that I am enjoying about my son and being a mom. There are so many things to choose from, but the one of the cutest things that is that he's starting to go through a language explosion right now. And so I can tell him to say, we were telling him to say Super Bowl last week or 2 weeks ago when you're listening to this. And he was saying Super Bowl, and he was saying Chiefs. He really was saying cheeks because that's like one of his favorite words, and to point out his cheeks to us. But he was trying to say Chiefs. So I think he was excited that that the Chiefs won. And I have to say, I'm so not going to comment one way or the other. I have never felt like a halftime show that the reaction was so polarized that you were either appalled or you thought it was awesome. So I still can't believe that we're talking about it like 2 weeks later. Um, so whatever you thought about the halftime show, hey, I guess we're all still talking about it. So that's what they're looking for. And then coming up, so Teresa is actually going to be coming up on the podcast. I am not doing a podcast next week. It's President's Day week, and I am just taking that time to be with my family. I am prioritizing and doing that. And then I am going to hopefully in March, I have someone who's coming on to talk about what it's like to work from home. And she has 4 kids. So we will talk about how she is able to manage all that. So anyways, if you can go and write a review for the podcast, that would be amazing. I did a horrible job with my ums today, and I'm sorry. This was a very different podcast than I anticipated from the beginning. I learned a lot in the last, 40 days, and it's not what I thought I was going to learn. So anyways, I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you in 2 weeks. I hope you have a nice holiday, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.